We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat. Period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass is my partner Mark Wages, and you are on the lifeboat. So, tell you what, if you're thinking, didn't we just talk about this? We did. And we're going to be deep diving a little bit further into this for a couple of reasons. We got so much mail from people who have opinions on this, and my response back to every one of them was, you know what? These are some super valid points, and there's a lot of people that are weighing in on both sides of the aisle, and I really like the idea of bringing this up so that the people here on the lifeboat can give us their opinion. This is not run-of-the-mill kind of stuff, and I don't just mean subject matter. This is the kind of stuff where if there's anybody that has a pretty decent ability to weigh in on this thing, it's going to be people that are fighting the good fight and doing it every day. You know, we have a lot of people here that have been addicted to a lot of different substances. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into what we've got going on. Before I do, I want Mark to explain to you the call-in process. We're going to do this a couple more times, people, until everybody sort of gets the handle on it, so that there's no questions in terms of how it goes. Mark, I know you're going to do this better than I can. Tell everybody how this works.
Hey guys, good to see you guys tonight. Sorry I missed yesterday, but I had some stuff going on. Tommy did an awesome job, and I thank you guys for coming out and supporting all of us. When one of us aren't here, it does help. Yep. It does help. But anyway, okay. So the lifeboat here, guys. We're doing a call-in show now. Anybody that's new here, if they're listening to me, if you guys go to the pinned comment at the top of your chat, there will be a number which you can actually dial your landline if you want to use your landline or your cell phone, and then obviously there it even says now, it says meeting ID. You'll enter that meeting ID when it prompts you, and then it'll ask you to enter that passcode when it prompts you. You just do that, and then you'll come into the queue or the waiting room. You may be muted. Just sit there, and you actually hear background music. It's got some elevator music stuff that I'm working on trying to figure out how to change. Yeah. But if you guys do that, if you want to call in, you can. I would encourage you to do so. And also there is a Zoom link, which is probably the easier option for everybody involved, including yourself. You don't have to have Zoom to click that link. When you click it, it may ask you to download it, but it's very, very quick. It's not a big thing to do. You click on that, and same thing. You'll come into it'll ask me to admit you, and I'll let you in. Those kinds of things. One more thing, okay? Make sure you got headphones in, and well, you don't really even have to have your headphones in if you're calling from a landline. You just got to have your YouTube audio off. Okay, you can have your YouTube running, looking at the live chat. You just got to have your audio off on your YouTube window. Okay, inside your YouTube. When you click on YouTube, page opens up, click mute inside the YouTube. You'll still have audio coming through your computer. You will hear.
You'll still be able to hear us, yeah.
Yeah, you'll hear me and Tommy through the Zoom link. Okay, so you won't lose the audio between us. You just have to kill that. If you guys leave that volume on YouTube, you'll hear what appears to be an echo, which it really isn't, and I'm not going into why, but that is an echo. So there's how you do it. If you have any questions, I want to say this too. If you're having problems and you want to call in, email me. Okay, I can send you a direct link inside your email, and that's all you have to do. I have no problem sending you an email if you want to come in here. And I'll send you a link. You come in. That's actually how I get Tommy in here every day. I send him a link.
Yep.
So that's how you do it, guys. If you guys have any questions throughout, please start calling in now. We'll get you in queue now.
Yeah. You may wait a minute, but you're going to be listening to the show one way or the other. So, yeah, you can start calling in right this moment if you want. Thank you, Brandon Taylor. And he's right. The like button is an awful lot like a cat. It digs attention. So give it some, people. It definitely helps with the complex algorithms. And obviously, if you're looking around, the boat is growing. We got a lot more crew members, and we're getting a lot more views. And a lot of that is because you guys are taking this more seriously in terms of always trying to get that like button slapped around. And we really do appreciate that. It helps the channel and everybody on it. So we really appreciate that. So again, we have talked about this, but we're going to bring up some stuff today that you probably didn't hear the last time. This is so the last time we talked about this, we were talking about a program that is just really starting to come out in Vancouver. And why is this important? You think to yourself, I'm not in Vancouver, right? They've always been sort of super liberal. If you think that this isn't going to visit our shores, we have 2 safe site injection programs in the U.S. already. There was one in New York. There was one in Pennsylvania. There are clandestine ones that are all over the United States that are being run in many cases by the local government, but they're just doing it against the law. And so this is something that we're going to be looking at coming to this country and a lot of other ones. I promise you, people, this is the future. And if you don't like it, then you need to speak up. And if you love it, well, then you need to speak up. But staying on the sidelines on this isn't going to help in either direction. So the new program in Vancouver is where they're giving out fentanyl. And we talked about this. They're giving out fentanyl so that the street user, they either sell it to them, right? Or they give it out depending on the person's financial situation. So it's very much like any other government program where it's subsidized if a person can't afford it. And if it's somebody that's buying the stuff, then, it is a completely, different situation. But they've got all of that sort of taken care of on the basis. But if you go back a ways, this started illegally. This started by a group of individuals that call themselves Dolph. And if you've not heard of this, there are some videos out there on the web. Vice does a great one where they really kind of go deep into this. But Dolph was the Drug User Liberation Front, right? It's an acronym.
Hello?
All right. Am I unmuted is the question now. Okay. All right. So what ended up happening is these people were going out and spending $3,000 or $4,000 at a whack, and spending $3 or $4 grand. Probably get him off since he's not fully closed. Okay, good. So Dolph was spending $3 or $4 grand at a whack, and they were buying. When you first see the video, they're talking about drugs that we're all really, really used to. They were talking about heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. But there was also ketamine, there was also MDMA, any of the drugs that people were using and abusing on the streets, because fentanyl was ending up in things it shouldn't. Like you go out and buy meth, and it ends up that they're cutting a little fentanyl in there. And I know that if you're a drug user, you're thinking to yourself, why would I want something that takes me down if I'm buying something that takes me up? And the simple answer is they're getting the stuff really cheap. And if they can get you to do it for 4 or 5 days in a row, there's no going back. Right? This is really job security for a drug dealer in Vancouver. If they can get you strung out on this stuff, there's not any saying no. So they're cutting it into blow, right into cocaine. They're cutting it into meth. They're cutting it into MDMA, into ecstasy, into ketamine. So Dolph was buying this stuff and then using spectral analysis, where they were actually taking this stuff and testing it. And in many cases, they're buying it on the dark web. The stuff was coming laced with fentanyl anyway, and they would wash it. You can put most drugs out there can be put through a fairly simple process to remove unwanted chemicals. Kylie, good to see you. So you remove these unwanted chemicals. Now they go out with these things put into what drug users very often call stamps. And it is a piece of paper. If you've never seen a stamp, it is a pretty simple concept. All right, we can show you this here real quick. The stamp concept is this: you take a square piece of paper, you fold it triangularly, right? Now the drug sits inside that little pouch. This gets folded over onto itself, and you get a perfectly rectangular piece of paper that often has a stamp on it. Well, they go and get a 25, a 0.25, or a quarter of a gram of whatever the substance is with a stamp on it. And that stamp had the Dolph logo that says this drug is clean. Now, where this really sort of starts to get people a bit jumpy is that there are people saying, you can do this, you don't have to worry about overdose. Well, you can overdose on heroin, pretty easily. You can overdose on anything that is a respiratory depressant. You also can blow your heart up overdosing on things that take you in the opposite direction. So it's a misnomer to say that this stuff is safe. What they really, the pitch, so to speak, ought to be that at least you know what you're getting, right? Now, this epidemic for them started in 2016. That doesn't mean that they weren't seeing a ton of deaths prior to that, because Vancouver has been the epicenter on this hemisphere of drug overdoses for decades. But in 2016, there was a major shift from heroin to fentanyl. And when that shift happened, they started to see really large number of overdose deaths. And it peaked out at about 7,000. Does that sound like a familiar number? We were talking about 7,000 as the peak in the 1970s here in the United States. But they lost 7,000 people in a much, much smaller place, right? You compare the United States of America to Vancouver, we're talking about, 7,000 is a lot of people there. And at that point, Dolph was born. The founder of the Drug User Liberation Front first tried to do it the right way, so to speak. And he went and got a job working for the government. And he was attending so many drug overdoses and keeping people alive while waiting for the authorities to show up with, the antidote, so to speak, with Narcan, that they started to have users go out and walk city blocks carrying Narcan looking for people who had overdosed. And they did some really fantastic things that really did save a lot of lives. But it's a slippery slope. Now, I'm not sitting here to tell you this is a bad idea, and I'm not sitting here to tell you it's a good idea. I'm sitting here to tell you that this was an attempt to save a lot of lives. Now, oftentimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want so badly to do the right thing that sometimes we do really, really questionable things in the name of good. And maybe it's not the best idea. Maybe it's a terrible idea, but we really want to know what you think. And there are a lot of you, I mean, a lot of you that reached out to me on this with some really strong opinions. And, this is the internet. So some of you called me an idiot, which is pretty standard operating procedure, and you didn't hurt my feelings. I'm the mouthpiece. So I'm bringing this subject up. Make no mistake, people, we want this being talked about. Doesn't mean that Mark and I are saying, what we need to do is give out free dope to everybody that wants it, because this will save every life. It won't. It won't. I promise you. And there is a gray area. I'm going to give you my opinion on the gray area. You can weigh in on this. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. You can call me an idiot as long as you do that on an email and not on me live. But the gray area is this: the people that aren't full-blown addicts, the people who have just started, the term often with opiates is chipping. These are people that are using the drug but don't have a habit. They don't have to have that every single day. Those people stand, they're going to be affected by the concept of, hey, I can get this stuff. I can go down and I can get this, and I know I'm not going to get anything with fentanyl in it. There is a stamp of approval, intentionally or by accident, that takes place when this happens. Now, I also want you to think of some other things. Where can I get the pure heroin? Green Star, that's being given away in Vancouver.
we recommend that
No fentanyl.
maybe,
That's what he says.
yeah, maybe you quit. Yeah, fentanyl's awful, right? Fentanyl is absolutely killing people. Um, and now the best case scenario, and this is something that we beat the drum on. We believe the best case scenario is quitting. Now that is easier said than done. We realize that. So there needs to be something done because we are losing an entire army of potential. We are losing here in the US, we're into six figures, people. We're going to lose more than 125,000 people this year. It's probably going to be closer to 150. And as we've talked about before, that's not counting people that die from infection. That's not counting from people that die while driving because they nod out and slam into a concrete bridge abutment. This is literally just overdoses.
Right.
So the number is probably closer to the ballpark of 250,000.
Yep.
Right. That's really where most experts are putting the number. So
I would say this. Let me say this real quick, Tommy. We got guys. I read an article today. Also, they just at one of the injecting sites, safe injecting sites that they have that Tommy just spoke about a little bit there. They said that they're stopping upwards of 10 overdoses a day inside their facility. So I mean, if you just times that by 365, what are you looking at there? You see what I'm getting at?
One injection site.
Yep.
Now, and let's be really honest. If you put up one of these safe injection sites, the vast majority of people who are going to take advantage of a safe injection site are living on the street, or they may have a place to live, but very often they don't have a vehicle. We're not talking about the people living in the suburbs who are driving into a part of city to use a safe injection site. So with that number of people who are saved, hello, Stacy Michaels, we're looking at a very, very small area because this is foot traffic. So that's 10 people saved, within a couple of city blocks, maybe a mile in a 1 mile radius. So start multiplying that by an entire city that has a couple of 100 square miles. And the number of people that we're losing, I'm not here to tell you that I think giving away dope is the answer, but the question is the important part, right? The answer, the fact that we're talking about this, but the question is, what do we do? Because we're losing far too many people. And, Seventh Son, good to see you, Seventh, by the way. Seventh Son made a really great point. There are hostile parties involved in this that are sending this stuff to the shores of not just us, but Canada and a lot of other places, that they're killing people. No different than if they used a handgun or they did a chemical attack or anything else. They're killing people. Make no mistake. So when you're under attack, what do you do? Right? The question becomes, what do you do? And is there a right answer? I don't know. But it's important as hell that we talk about it. It really is. If this is one of those things that's just too uncomfortable to talk about, then if you think 250,000 deaths a year suck, wait till we're at 500,000, because it's going to happen. And we've been beating this drum since before it was a six-figure problem. If you go back to the early days of the lifeboat, when we were saying we're losing over 150 or 180 people a day, well, now we're closing in on the 350 mark every single day. And these are overdoses. These are, you put it in your body and you drop dead from it. Not all of the ancillary deaths and all of the other things and problems and heartaches and families destroyed and people shooting one another, to get the stuff. Because again, the street fentanyl is something that you need to do constantly. It's not a inject once a day, as Mark said in the other day when we talked about this. Hey, the guy, good to see you. We're talking about going and getting 4 doses a day in order to stay right. I don't want, if this is not your drug of choice, I don't want you to think that they're going there so that they can just party and have a good time all day long. By the time you're there, you're just trying to not be sick. And it's taking 4 of these doses every single day. And we've got Aaron in the queue. So Aaron's going to be coming up. Aaron may have emailed me. I'm not sure. That may be one of the names that, but I've been telling everybody that sent me an email, you know what? I'll give you an opportunity to talk, and I'll give you an opportunity to tell us your opinion. And on this one, people, make no mistake, there's not an opinion on this that's not valid.
Yep.
I promise you. I don't care what side of the aisle you're going to fall on for this. that's a legitimate point. Whether you're saying this should happen or whether you're saying that this shouldn't, I understand both arguments, but it needs to be talked about. These discussions are the kind of things that take this out of the shadows, where it's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, and into the light where maybe something will get done about this.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Because that's really where we're at.
Yep.
And you said Aaron is on the line.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. You want to bring him in
Let's
now?
bring him in.
Okay.
Yeah, let's bring him in.
Hey, Aaron, go ahead. I'm going to ask you to unmute there. Go ahead and unmute yourself. And I think you're on there now, aren't you, Aaron? Good to see you, bud.
Hey, good
Aaron,
to see you.
welcome to the lifeboat.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, awesome. So,
Aaron, so what do you think?
So my opinion is definitely a little different from probably the majority of the people on the boat. And I've never called in or done anything like this, so I'm a little bit nervous. I don't want to come across as offensive or mean to anyone.
No. Just shoot from the hip. You're not going to bum any of us out.
Yeah,
Really
Nobody's going to get offended.
And I actually did watch that 9-10 minute video from Vice about the free drug use. I do watch a decent amount of political stuff. And I know you guys don't like to get political, religious, cuss, anything like that. So I'll try not to, but I don't agree with it. I think it seems just like a bad idea. And first of all, there's a couple points the lady made in the video, and I actually wrote some down while preparing for this. But she talked about how when fentanyl is in the area, it lowers life expectancy, but she doesn't actually talk about if meth or heroin are in the area and how that affects people, because I think she's talking about how this is perfectly safe and making it sound like the rest is totally unsafe, and I don't think that's a fair representation. And another thing is, I've never done hard drugs. I've never touched meth or heroin or ketamine or a lot of those. I recently graduated college. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm familiar with everything, certainly, but I haven't done quite a bit, and it's always just been a decision of mine. I've smoked weed. I've done plenty of other things in my life, but I've never done anything too crazy.
Right.
But I just think what they're doing seems like they're paving a way for easier drug use, and I don't think that's ever the solution. I think there has to be.
We're losing you a little bit there, and you know what? I'll be really honest with you. I agree with you on a lot of this. I really truthfully believe that in a lot of ways and for a lot of people, this is probably going to pave the way for especially the occasional user. And we tend to think of meth or heroin or coke or any of that as you have addicts and then you have nothing else, right? There's nobody out there that recreationally uses, and I hate that term, I do. But
yeah, and that's one thing the lady did mention, the person mentioned in the video, or the guy in the video who's being interviewed, where he says, what about the people who do heroin once a month for fun? And like, I've never touched this stuff. I don't know, but I've watched your show a few times. I've never actually commented in or done anything like that. But I would imagine there's not people like that. I don't think there's people who do meth or heroin once a month. There
are very few, if any.
Yeah.
I mean, I've run into people over the course of the time that I was in the life that use drugs constantly, but they don't necessarily use the same drug every single day. And I think that's a legit point, because I don't think there's a lot of them, but how easy is it to slide from I'm an occasional user to I'm an addict when you think that they're going to give it to you? And I don't have to worry about getting busted, and I don't have to worry about, I think that right now, the fact that you can overdose on this poison and the fact that it is catching a little bit of traction is something that probably deters people who may have experimented from maybe taking it to the next level, where, anytime you do something like this, you're almost giving it a green light, like a rubber stamp to go hard. I agree with you on that one. What, Aaron, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but after watching that video, do you think that there's a solution to this?
I mean, I thought about that quite a bit. And one thing I figured is potentially anytime there's anyone with that, they get involved with drugs in any way, shape, or form. I'm in the U.S. I don't know the laws in Canada. I know occasionally in the U.S. I've watched tons of cop videos. You'll see people get pulled over with a tiny bit of drugs at times, and the cops will throw it away and let them go at times. I don't know if I know they're supposedly more progressive and liberal. I don't know if they're just letting people go, but I think there could be, and I've never been to jail either, but I think there could potentially be some solution of maybe better education or some sort of incentive programs to try to teach people about this in jail or prison, that also potentially maybe lowers their sentences ever so slightly. So it incentivizes them to go into these classes, and they might actually learn something and get something out of it. I don't know what the solution would be, though. I think every death is bad. Every overdose death is a tragedy sort of thing, and I think we need to stop it. But I think paving the way for more drug use does not seem like a solution to me.
Well, and I think that that's pretty legit. And you brought up something that I don't know that we've ever said when talking about this subject, which I think is kind of clutch. There really is something to be said. Look, I told you guys, I've been to prison, and I went to prison multiple times. Do you know how many chances I got before I went to prison? Honestly, like I got arrested so many times. I would get arrested for shoplifting, or I would get arrested for theft, or I'd get arrested not for possession. I dodged that bullet because my drug of choice came in balloons. It was usually in my mouth, and if I got pulled over, I'd just swallow it. But I think if we did some kind of an interdiction, some kind of an intervention, when you get caught the first time for drugs, sending you to prison probably isn't the right idea, but hang that over. Like I know that the drug court, if you guys are familiar with that, here in the U.S., we have something called drug court, which really gives you the opportunity to figure out a way to eliminate this off of your record if you can demonstrate that you're going to stay drug free. And they force you to go to classes, and they force you to do a lot of different things. Not a lot of people. Its success rate is awful. It really is. It's awful. The number of people that progress all the way through the program for the longest times was in the single digits. But for the people that do, after they get through this program and they graduate, none of them go back. So I think education is probably the key to all of this. And unfortunately, it almost becomes an all or nothing thing. They're either giving out free dope, right? Or they're locking you up for 100 years, for having a quarter gram of heroin on you. And there doesn't seem to be any kind of in-between area where because I'll tell you from being inside, there's not a lot of rehab in there. It sounds good, and they talk about it a lot in the news. But the truth of the matter is the rehab programs in prison are a joke. And I know that people look at me and they go, well, you said the best thing that ever happened to you was going to prison, and look how, you went in there and you got sober. I went 3 times. And the third time I met a convict that got me sober.
Yeah. Who wasn't a program?
It wasn't a program. It was a guy that cared about me. There was a guy that cared about someone from a different race and just thought, this is a guy who's going to waste his life. I'm going to see what I can do to help this guy. And I said, in a video the other day, the gold standard is addicts helping addicts. But, if you were to arrest somebody who got caught, on their second or third time with small amounts of heroin, if you could put them into some kind of a program where they were incarcerated, but they weren't in a prison, like a good, decent halfway house kind of a program where it's super intensive on rehabilitation and education. But unfortunately, the world still has this opinion that, just stop doing it. You just need to stop. Well, it's not that simple.
Can I say another thing?
Absolutely. You can say anything you got on your mind.
Yep.
Yeah, so I know recently you actually brought this up recently in one of the shows where you talked about sort of the drug testing kits that the US are now passing out.
Right.
And I think that's probably a much better solution because it seems cheaper. It's not actually putting drugs into anybody's hands who wouldn't actually be doing it on their own. And I get that there's going to be tons of people who just don't care enough, or they think they trust their dealer or something like that,
right?
And they don't get their stuff tested. But I think that's a good step that the U.S. is taking. I don't think it's enough, especially when the U.S. deaths per year in overdoses is mind-blowing sort of thing. It's 100,000 every year. It's I don't know, but
it's bad.
I think the U.S.
sure.
is taking the right steps, but I think Canada is taking the wrong steps. I think it's going to lead down a bad path potentially.
Well, and if you could see, I know you probably had to mute yourself, but if you could see the comments, there's a lot of people that, number one, are thanking you for calling in with your opinion because it does get people thinking. I agree with you. The test strips for fentanyl are really a good step. I believe that. And I think that giving out Narcan is really a good step. And we're doing some things that are productive. One of the problems becomes this. You go out and you turn a trick, right? You sell your body for $25 and you go and you buy drugs with it. And then you take the test strip and you find out that there's fentanyl in it. And you think you're going to throw that thing out? Do you think you're going to go, well, then I just won't do this because there's fentanyl in it? What's going to happen is they're going to shoot it anyway. I mean, plain and simple. Or if you just went and stole and then you had to go and sell what you stole and you've got the money and you just bought the drugs and you're sick as hell, trust and believe you're putting it in your arm. Now, knowledge is power. Knowing that stuff can kill you may make you do a smaller dose. It may make you, make sure that you don't inject alone, right? Because that's a huge thing. And changing the laws, you realize that for the longest time in this country, if you called 911 and said, my friend just overdosed and fell down, you stood a decent chance of getting charged with his murder if he died. Now, the Good Samaritan laws have been changed in this country so that if you step in to save somebody and you make the 911 call, you're clean, and that has done a lot to save a lot of lives. It really has. And in terms of incarceration, I think that if they can prove that a dealer is selling dope that's killing people, I think he should go to prison for murder.
Can I add something?
Please.
Aaron, I really appreciate what you're saying here. And, I know that you watched the Vice program. Did you see the Vice program also? And you guys can check this out. We've talked about it before here. I can't remember what the title was, but it was two people that were actually were addicts, and they were trying to help people, kind of like what me and Tommy are doing, but they were actually on the street. They had like a halfway house and all that kind of thing. They would get people into, that was their main thing. They didn't have like YouTube. But what I noticed throughout that whole thing, if anybody was to watch, because this is a documentary, guys, I mean, that's what they do over there at Vice. And
right, good ones too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great program.
If you can handle without getting triggered by watching stuff like that, it's a good thing to go check out. It really is. But what I noticed was that the people that were actually being saved typically were not being saved by first responders. Their friends were saving them. If you guys, there's also another channel called Morals Over Money, I believe is what the channel's called. He shows Kensington, which is in Pennsylvania. I watched him bring, because he documents everything all day long. He's down there in that open air heroin market, and it's fentanyl now, obviously.
Yeah,
but
fentanyl, yeah.
People are all nodding out and stuff. But the thing of it is, I watched him bring back the same person 3 times in one day. So what I'm saying is, guys, that this is a real thing, and it ain't going to be the first responders that's going to fix it. It's going to have to be society itself. And it's just my opinion. Now, the first responders need to be there. I'm not saying that at all. Those people need called, because after you come up out of that, you're going to need help. And that's the other thing I want to say about these sites that we're talking about. There's also a stat that we haven't talked about here. And that stat is that out of all the people that go there, they've now got enough historic data to say that 1 out of 20 people get help. Okay, these aren't just people that are going in there, getting their drugs and walking out. 1 out of 20 people are actually getting help. And if you put that to a large scale number, just like we talked about earlier, that's a big number, guys. That's a lot of sons, daughters, husbands, and wives that are saved, that have a chance.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Mark. When the guys that first started, AA, they used to keep a half a gallon of gin underneath the kitchen sink, and where they had their meetings, because they used to say that if a guy comes in and he's going through the delirium tremens, or he's in full blown withdrawal, you're not going to be able to talk to this guy about changing his life. The first thing you got to do is take that off the table, give him, and they would, imagine just the strength that it takes to pour that guy 4 shots, right, of a substance that you're not using, and then watch him, mellow out and stop shaking so that you could talk to him. And that was probably about, the number that they would be successful with. They would get these people to where they were not in the DTs anymore. And if you get 1 out of 20 of them, it's a brother, it's a father, it's a son, or the opposite if it's a woman. Clear Mind says all dope is fentanyl now. It is a rarity if you could find the actual heroin. And he's right. And they're getting really good at this, people. They're taking things that are very, very dark and very, very gooey. Like they'll literally take things like Coca-Cola and boil everything off until all you have is the food coloring and and what's left of the syrup, just the heavy syrup. And then they'll lace it with fentanyl and put just enough vinegar in it to smell. And then they'll put that stuff out into the little balls and sell it as heroin. So a lot of the stuff that they even think they're doing that's heroin may not necessarily be heroin. And again,
Aaron,
Go ahead.
yeah, Aaron, I want to say that I really appreciate what you were saying here and what you actually, you can very well tell that you've looked into this yourself.
Thought about it.
You educated yourself, and that's a breath of fresh air to me and Tommy for sure.
Yeah,
it really
for
is.
real.
And because other than outside the boat, we don't get this. Is what I'm trying to say. Everybody in here, I mean, I know that they've researched it with us. You know what I'm saying? People that have been here for a while, our crew is what we call them. But listen, I really appreciate that.
And somebody fresh out of college that's looking into this that doesn't have a drug habit does mean that talking about stuff like this is doing something. Like that's literally proof.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
100, man.
Thank you guys for having me. I was gonna say, I wasn't sure how this conversation was going. I was gonna say I've watched the show plenty of times, but yeah, I always knew that generally I was, I don't know, probably on one side, and a lot of you, I was gonna say, because I've never done most hard drugs. So I was gonna say I know I'm different in a lot of ways. I probably don't have the best experience or the answers or solutions, but I know what you guys are doing is definitely the right thing. I was gonna say community is the biggest thing for everyone, especially if these people don't have families and other stuff. It's like you guys are going to be the families for these people, and I think you guys are probably doing more than a lot of stuff. And I also going to try not to get political because I know you guys never do, but I'm typically a little bit more conservative. I tend to think the government's not the best and they're not the most efficient in a lot of ways, and so I don't think that there would be the best way to handle this. I think there's going to be some better way, whether churches get involved or local communities or other things.
Yes.
But thank you for giving me the opportunity, and the fact that this didn't turn into any sort of argument or anything.
No.
Yeah. No.
Well, I think that's probably a credit to you, Aaron, in all honesty, because clear and concise, not you guys are idiots, why would you give this stuff away? And it goes to show that it doesn't much matter what side of the aisle people fall on. If you're respectful and you thought out your points, boy, we can always talk about, and I think everybody gets a little smarter every time that happens. Thank you so much. Call in anytime you want to talk about something, please. Okay. You're a pleasure to have on the boat.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys, give him some love in the chat. Throw one in there if you like that call, please.
Right? I mean,
give him a virtual hug, man. High five.
Yeah, that's
a great call.
That really is pretty cool stuff right there, to be sure.
And not just a call, a great guy. I mean,
true story. And it's proof, people. It's proof positive that it does not matter what side of the aisle, whether you agree or disagree. The important thing is that we're all talking about this. And I don't know the answer. I've never come here to say that I have it. And if you knew the amount of time look at that, there's a lot of cats popping ones up there. Mark and I have spent so much time talking about this thing when the camera's not running. Like, this is something that we think and talk about a lot. And it's funny because very often we'll swing in one direction for a week or two and and then sort of come back in the other. And I don't know, after listening to Aaron, it really is
he gives us something to think about.
Really salient points, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And ain't that what you were saying earlier? I mean, that's what it takes, guys. It's going to take the communication. It's going to take the conversation to be able to be had. And because back in 2018, I'm sorry, the feds were actually cracking down on this extremely hard. Like Tommy said earlier, there are still places out there, these safe injecting sites, that are operating against the law.
Sure.
Okay. And what's happening is the local governments, just like in a lot of our other, without the drug topic, we know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
A law is only as good as how much it's enforced. And so if they choose not to enforce it, that's how these things start. We've seen this with marijuana. We've seen that with the marijuana thing at the beginning of that. I mean, they're still fighting that stuff in the federal courts, the legalization of marijuana. And that's a whole nother thing, right?
Yes.
So you can imagine how much bigger of a hurdle this is. Because you're asking people to accept the fact that we're going to bring people that have a very, very rough lifestyle maybe into an area that might not be, as rough of where they're from. So they kind of bring some of that stuff with them. And that's another thing that we've talked about here. It does,
no question.
It brings another element. But
a whole other element.
I think we got somebody else here on the line, Tommy. So go ahead.
Well, and I'm going to read what Tommy Bird said, and I'm going to read what Clear Mind said, because I think both of these are kind of key. Clear Mind says the explosion in addiction is a red flag for how our country is suffering. The only way out of the darkness is with God's help. Now, whether you agree with him on the religious thing or whether you don't, our country is in darkness, and so is our world, no question. And the worse the economy is, the more people tend to do drugs. The less, we have said a million times on this show that the opposite of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And when you're not connected to things, you look for something to be connected to, and the dope takes that over. And when we lock down the entire world, right, for just a 10-day cooling off, whatever, that lasted a year, we drove a lot of people into it. And then we gave them free money, but there was nothing to spend the money on because people weren't at work making products. And, you know, it was a bad situation all the way around. And I'm not blaming any party or any of that crap. I'm just saying it was a absolute petri dish for drug addiction. And that's where we've ended up. Tommy Bird says, I pretty much share his opinion in a lot of ways, and I have done a lot of hard drugs.
Yep.
In fact, I've done about every hard drug there is except for PCP. So Aaron, take that to heart.
Yes.
You know, there are a lot of people here that, you know, have come at this from a completely different angle who absolutely agree with you 100%. Yep. And okay. DT68 says marijuana is all natural ale. Marijuana is absolutely all natural. And you know what? We don't bag on drugs here across the board. We're not an anti-drug channel, but we're an anti-addiction channel. And for people who say that, you know, you can't get addicted to cannabis, you can get addicted to video games. I assure you, you can get addicted to cannabis. You can get addicted to anything once the malfunctioning reward center of your brain begins the process of rewarding you as if it's life or death for whatever it is that you're doing. And if that happens to be cannabis, there are people who can get out of control. It's not going to make you hit rock bottom, and it's not going to make you sell your body, but it's definitely something that you may not be able to control after a period of time. And that's really what we worry about.
Hey, Kylie, thank you for saying that. She hit it right on.
Sick Nation.
Yes.
Well done.
That's the name of that show over on Vice, guys.
He's right, too. Yep. That's exactly what it was called.
Just Google it up. I'm telling you, that's millions and millions of views on that. So, but we got somebody else in here. I'm going to unmute them. They don't have a name. So,
okay.
I'm not sure who.
I already.
Oh, sorry. Do it again. Sorry. I hit the button. That was my fault. Please unmute again. I am so sorry. There you go. There you go.
I unmuted myself. Guess who this is?
That is Ripper.
This is Ripper.
Full readiness. I knew that. I knew that voice. Hey, Ripper, how you doing?
Hey, good. I was listening to you guys while doing my stuff around the house here, and you know, one thing I wanted to add to it, and it's not necessarily per se a challenge to what the last caller said.
Sure.
You know, about you know, it encouraging use, because of course that's always a possibility. I mean,
right. Yep.
We all are all human, and people all make their own choices, right?
Amen.
So that absolutely could happen, but it's all in how you do it. And this will help educate some people. Go back and do searches around 1995, 1996, 60 Minutes did a special about a doctor that in Liverpool at the time. This was right at the height of the drug, the war on drugs, which really wasn't that, right?
Right.
It was basically just bringing it here heavier. But about that time, we had a war on drugs, right? Well, about
Sure.
that time in Liverpool, it was a mess. Okay. There was, I mean, just like, you know, the stories you hear, you know, tent cities and syringes everywhere, and
right.
And it just wasn't safe to even walk around, right? And you know, people were sick, and you know, it was heavy addiction. And at the time, they were looking for ways to clean, that we have to do something. And so this doctor came out and started a program. Now, I don't remember his name, so you'll have to look it up on that episode of 60 Minutes. But this doctor came out and said, look, what we need to do is education and support with these people, and I believe that they can go on to live productive lives. And so what they did is, there were expectations and there were things people had to do, but basically you came in and you agreed to enter into their program. They did a health screening. They got you health, so they knew where your base health line was, etc.
Yep. Blood draw.
They went over how to take care of yourself, how to cleanliness, all that kind of stuff. Then they actually, from that, figured out where your baseline was, and then they prescribed you medical grade
diacetyl
narcotics.
morphine. Yep.
Whatever it was they used, whether it was
Heroin.
whether it was
What it
meth,
was.
whether it was heroin, whether
Yep.
it was whatever it was, it
Even
was
crack.
medical
I
grade.
know the guy you're talking about. You could even get crack from them.
Right. It wasn't street grade anything, because he said that's part of the reason why their health tanks so badly and why their, faces get like they do, because you don't know the trash that's in it, right?
Yeah.
And then they would find out their baseline, and it would be prescribed to them. They would have to use it. They would show them how to use it correctly, how to take care of themselves, and how to, they would have a set dose, so they couldn't do more than that. But not only that, they then would enroll them in a program where they found them work, found them a place to live, and started showing them, look, okay, and they found that as these people were healthy, and we're talking, this went on for a while, that literally they checked some of these people 10 years, I think it was, I don't know if it was 10 years, but it was years down the road, and they were productive. One of the ladies got her kids back, was healthy. She was still using according to the program, but she had a job, she had a place to live, she was taking care of her kids, got her kids back from, the state that took them back. Yep. And they found that in every one of these cases that they were able to not only lead productive lives, but healthy lives. Like, they didn't look like they did. They weren't sickly. They were able to be functioning, right? But then, of course, because of that time frame, well, it wasn't Europe that pulled the plug, or the UK or wherever. It was the U.S. And it'll explain this in the episode, but the U.S. came in and said, look, we can't have you doing this. We have a war on drugs. Have you not heard?
So we're not going to give you any more money from us on anything unless you do away with this program.
Exactly. And then that doctor had to he had to leave. They shut him down. He left. He went to Brazil, started it up in Brazil to clean up one of their towns, which is still, I think, successfully running. Last time I checked, was like really working well. And within a year, Liverpool went back to the hole it was, right?
Yep.
And because they took that away. And so that in itself should show people that, look, done correctly, I agree. You can't just be giving it away nonchalantly. I mean, yes, in the short term, that will save lives. But it's about the whole process. And it has to be a complete process where you're getting these people and showing them, look, you're worthy, you're worthwhile, you can function with this. And they even help them taper down to lower levels. Right. But they brought them back into society and showed that, look, there are ways to manage this and ways to get it to where these people are productive again and are healthy and happy. Right. Yep. And that was by far more successful. So it can be done. It's not going to just make people, yes, if you're just giving it away without any follow through, then yes, I would agree that could cause issues. But if you guys watch that episode,
I know the doctor you're talking about. I've actually read a decent amount about this, and and you're right. It was literally America that shut this down, and it wasn't just in Great Britain. There were about 4 places that were successfully doing this. What they have found, and people, whether or not you fall on either side of the aisle, the part that is difficult to argue with is this: if you eliminate the chase for anybody addicted, if you get rid of the crimes that need to happen in order for you to do your drug, if you eliminate the amount of time you have to spend driving across the entire city to go find a drug dealer and wait in a parking lot for him for 3 or 4 hours, and during the time that you wasted committing crimes, they give you some education, all of a sudden you have hours during the day to do nothing. And what they find is these people during that time would say, if I don't have to worry about money, maybe I can get a job and actually start to, maybe get my own place, or I can maybe get a car. But the problem with drug use is not always just the drugs. It's the lifestyle required to maintain the use of it. And that's something that this kind of a program, but I think Ripper nailed it.
Oh,
I really do. I hope,
yeah, you did.
yeah, I hope that Aaron is listening to this, because I think that the key is that It's not giving stuff out that's not enough, right? It really isn't. Giving out dope just makes you a streamlined drug dealer. But if that comes
it's the follow through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the follow through, and then taking away the fear, which in most addicts cases will be the fear of all kinds of things, withdraw, what am I going to do? If you take away that fear and then take away the shame, the stigma that comes with it, and that's what they were doing. When I say follow through,
shame is one of
when
the
I say follow
greatest
through,
driving
it's
forces.
giving them all of those things to make them feel worthwhile again, and you'll find that they'll go back to living because they're like, wow, I can do this, and I have people that care enough to do it so that I don't have to be sick doing it or feel bad about doing it or anything else. I can actually be a citizen again, and then eventually you'll find they'll ask on their own,
right?
To be tapered down and off.
Yep. Don't you have to, in my opinion, you have to remember what you're trying to fight for. So you have to remember that it's okay. There's still stuff outside of drugs. In other words, like you said a minute ago, Rip, you got to figure out that, hey, going back to real life is important and it's good. If you can't see that, and we call it a window here, and the window's open very, very small. And that's why these places are, in my opinion, they have a place somewhere in society, because if that window's open and nobody's there to pull you through it and open it up the rest of the way,
it's going to close real quick. It's
going to close right back down on you. And that's and you made another point there too, Rip, that I think that is important, is that it doesn't work 90% of the time if you're forced to do it. If you choose, if you're given the opportunity to choose, that's when it works, because you want to do it. You're there for the right reason. Now, I'm not saying that there ain't situations where that has to be, you have to be forced. I mean, we have to live by laws, guys. And I know that it's just what it is, right? Our society would be junk without them. But, at the same time, we got to understand that it still has to be that person's decision to get to that point, because they're not going to accept it. And Rip hit on the stigma thing. My God, that's such a great point. The stigma is where it's fixed. If you can fix that stigma in society, then everybody will be on board. This will be talked about all over the place, and it will get fixed. At least it'll get better.
Well, my guess is that you will see this program start morphing. If it doesn't already involve this, of course, what's the only thing that's going to make the news is the shock factor. They're giving it away, right?
Sure.
To anybody. But I bet you if you looked into the program, if it's not already this way, it will soon be this way, where it is going to be something that now we've got them safe.
Right. Now let's work on the social
level
aspect.
and secure. And now they're going to listen to us, and now we're going to be able to help them, and they're going to ask for help, and what more can they do, and we can suggest it, and things like that, and it will move into something where it again gives hope. It's really no different than the Suboxone situation. It's just a little bit more extreme for a more extreme narcotic that's now entered the realm.
Yep. Right. Yep. And
this is the way I look at it.
No, I agree with you 100%, Rip.
Wow.
Amazing call.
Yeah, I hope everybody really listened to what he was saying there.
Yeah, that was really the combo of the last two
Yes.
calls really kind of puts this stuff into some fantastic perspective. This is what we're hoping for, people, is a really good, clean discussion. I did see where Clear Mind said people need to use natural options, kind of like kratom or kratom, however you say it. Here's the thing, people, and I'm not trying to create an argument or anything else, but anytime you're using one of these safe, air quote, alternatives, right? Or natural alternatives. Very often, because of how these are labeled, they fly under the radar. There's absolutely no FDA. There's not anything. And this stuff ends up being, there are chemicals that get put into this. There are documented cases that there's no argument to, where the only substance in these people's bodies were kratom. But they're doing stuff to that to make it stronger than it was ever intended to be in nature. And they're boiling this stuff down, and they're selling it in shots, and they're doing all kinds of stuff that it's like anything else. Truthfully, the best possible case scenario is the hole in your life that you're filling with drugs. You learn to fill with things that have nothing to do with any other alternative, right? I'll be really honest with you, people. I'm addicted to what I'm doing right now. Like this has literally replaced what I was doing in my life. If someone says, "What's your drug of choice?" It's helping people try to get off drugs. That's now my drug of choice. And it's more fulfilling. And there's science to back it up. If it sounds like something that I'm making up, there is unbelievable amounts of science to what happens inside your body when you go out of your way to start helping people. You know, it does things that drugs can't even do. And there's a reason my bobbleheaded partner and I got back to this really quickly when we decided to take a month off.
Yeah.
And it was because both of us started realizing that we're not happy without this. We're really not. Like this really takes up a big space in our life. I saw one other comment. Rip, you are a beast. I saw one other comment. First of all, welcome, Bo Gillespie. I'm glad you're here. Wait for it. Welcome. If any of you are new to the boat, both of our emails, myself and my partners, are in the Dropbox. I did get an email, and I just saw it just before I went live. I will get to you if that happened to be you. But drop us an email, right? If you're brand new here, you know, drop us an email. Tell us a little bit about yourself so that when we look out on the deck and we see you and you're having a bad day, we don't just think, he's having a bad day or she's having a bad day. If we know who you are, we know what your substance of choice is, we know what you might do on your bad day, you know, we'll stop the damn show, right?
That's right.
Know, there's not much we do to work with somebody, but it's
let me say this real quick too, guys. Hey, Ripper's got a channel too, Rip Curl Readiness. Please go over and check him out. It's great prepping content. In my opinion, probably the best and well done stuff that I've seen. You know, it really is. And you know, that's, if you guys are into that, please go check that out. He's also got a second channel, Rip Curl Readiness at the Range, where he's, you know,
which is cool.
It's very cool stuff too. And
well, I appreciate you saying that, Mark. But you know, the reason I come here and all is just like you guys. This is for me is also too about helping other people. You know, I don't really promote my channel much just because, you know, people will come who want to come and they'll eventually find me and stuff like that. You know, I'm out there probably spending more time in chats and things like that, talking and making relationships with other people because, you know, that's what we all need to be doing. We all need to be getting back to accepting everyone and understanding that, you know, we all matter. And it doesn't, you know, nobody's perfect and everybody makes mistakes. And we all have different opinions, and that's okay. That's what makes us special, and that's why you know, we need to be coming together. So I'll let you guys get back to the show. I just wanted to interject that because I thought it was a really interesting, and just so you know, I actually came across that episode in a group that we were in, that I was watching that, and they shared that with us, and it really, really stuck with me to see if you look past just what they're doing to the why they're doing it and why it's working back then. Those are the important questions. So so there is hope, and you know what, you all are in the right place.
Love you, Rip.
Go, and I love y'all.
Love you, buddy.
Yep, Rip, you rock. You really do. And you know something, people, I think that the most important thing that he just said is that it's the question that matters, right? It really is. It's the reason that it's the why that they're doing it. It's not how they're doing or what they're doing. It's the why. And the why is trying to make sure we save lives, but better than that, better than keeping people from overdosing, because that's important stuff. But if you keep them from overdosing, they're just going to keep doing exactly what they do until the one day that you don't save them. Until the one day that they don't get there in time, or the Narcan doesn't do the job, or you know, they couldn't get to the safe injection site, or they didn't get their dope before you closed your door, so they go to a street guy. You're keeping them alive. But if you don't keep them alive to help them get on the right path, then I mean, it's a great concept. Exactly. But what Rip was talking about, and it really was a program that worked beautifully until our government and their infinite wisdom decided to threaten them right back into the sort of the Orwellian way that they were treating drug addicts.
One more thing here for Rip, guys. Throw one in the chat for him. I mean, my gosh,
yeah,
come on.
Absolutely.
He needs like a 1, a 2, and you know.
I think Chi-Chi was throwing up some anchors for that exact reason. I'm pretty sure I saw a 21 anchor salute.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, well done, Rip.
Really awesome.
And Aaron, I hope you're still listening, because that was a hell of a call.
Yes.
Between the two.
Oh my God.
I mean, it gives you an awful lot to think about. to all of the new people who are here on the boat today, we really appreciate it. We're at the top of the hour. We will be back tomorrow night right here, right? This is what we do. We're not going anywhere. So yeah, Aaron Jones, there he is. Thank you, Aaron. Great call. Great call, Rip. Good show tonight, everybody.
Yep.
Wait for it. We're glad you're here. We will be back tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. We will also be doing a call-in show. So we love you calling in, people. We really do. It makes the show go by and really makes for great conversation. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
Yeah, my partner. Oh, almost forgot. And this, people, is a fat cat in a basket. Say goodnight, squirrel. All right, good night, everybody. We love you.